Example 2, Air Force height requirement using table A2. Until recently, U.S. Air Force required that pilots have heights between 64 inches and 77 inches. Heights of women are normally distributed with a mean of 63.7 inches and a standard deviation of 2.9 inches. What percentage of women meet that height requirement that's in between 64 inches and 77 inches? So the first thing we want to do is we want to create our bell curve and draw a picture so we can shade the region that we're looking for. So we know that our mean is given to be 63.7 inches. Okay, and so what we have is we have a value of x that's going to represent 64 inches, and we have another value of x that's going to represent 77 inches. Now again, this scale is in inches, so therefore that scale represents x. And then what we're looking for is the area that's in between here. So we want to find the area or the probability that's in between those two values. So what I'm going to do now, since we have two x values, we're going to say, okay, the first one represents x1, and then the second one is going to represent x2. So let's go ahead and label that. So x1 equals 64, and then x2 is going to equal 77. So now when I draw my z-scale, we know that our mean is going to equal 0, and so we're looking for z-score 1 that's associated with x1, which is 64, and then we want to find z2, which is the x2 value of 77. And now recall that this represents the z-scale. So again, let's just reread what we just said. Okay, we know that women have heights that are normally distributed with a mean of 63.7 inches, standard deviation of 2.9 inches, and x1 is equal to 64 inches, and x2 is equal to 77 inches. We draw the normal curve, and we shade the desired area and then label those values. Now the shaded region represents the women with heights that are between 64 inches and 77 inches. So what we need to do is we're going to convert both x1 of 64 inches and x2 of 77 inches to z-scores. So the first thing is we know that x1 represents 64. We're going to subtract the mean in the problem, which is 63.7 inches, and divide by the standard deviation of 2.9. And so therefore we get 0.103. Round that to two decimal places gives us a z-score of 0.10. So therefore z1 is 0.10. Now we want to find z2, or z-score 2. So we're going to take x2, which is 77, subtract 63.7, divide that by the standard deviation of 2.9, and that gives us 4.586, and rounding that to two decimal places gives us 4.59. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to find the area that's to the left of z2, which is 4.59, and then we're going to have to subtract the area of z1, which is the area to the left of 0.10. So now we're going to use that table. So let's find the area that's to the left of 4 and that should be 4.59. Okay, well, if you take a look down here, okay, 4.59, okay, is not in our z-score. So if it's not on our table, then we're going to assume that it's going to be the highest number associated with that, close to 1. So therefore, we're going to say that 4.59 is 0.9999. And then remember that table A2 is designed so that all areas are cumulative areas from the left. Now, we're going to use table A2 to find the cumulative area to the left of 0.10. So let's go ahead and find that. So here's 0.1, and then there's 0. And so therefore, we get the area of 0.5398. So because the areas of 0.999 and 0.5398 are cumulative areas from the left, we find the shaded area by subtracting. So we're going to take 0.999 and subtract the area of 0.5398, and that gives us the area of 0.4601. So now this area represents 0.4601. And so we know that if we multiply that by 100%, then that would give us 46.01%. So the interpretation would be the following. Expressing the result as a percentage, we would conclude that about 46% of women satisfy the requirement of having a height between 64 inches and 77 inches. And therefore, about 54, meaning 100% minus 46%, which is equal to 54%, of women did not meet that requirement, and they were not eligible to be pilots in the U.S. Air Force. Okay, now let's make note. Sometimes there is a relatively small discrepancy between the area found in the table A2 and technology. The area obtained from technology will be more accurate because it is based on unrounded z-scores, whereas table A2 requires z-scores rounded to 2 decimal places.